design, create, communicate. I want that.
I want you to picture a scenario. You've just spent, say, 3 weeks on a massive project proposal. I mean, you have crunched all the numbers, the data is just impeccable, the logic is absolutely bulletproof. You are convinced this is it. This is the work that finally gets you that promotion. You attach it to an email, you hit send, maybe it's going to a client, maybe your boss, and then you wait.
And you fall into the void.
Exactly,
Yeah.
the void. 2 days go by, 3 days. Finally, you get that reply, you open it up, you're excited, and it's a single question. A question that you know for a fact you explicitly answered in the second paragraph of the report.
That is probably the most frustrating feeling in the entire corporate world. It is, it's the feeling of being completely invisible.
It's maddening.
Yeah.
And your immediate reaction usually is something like, they didn't read it, they're lazy, or maybe they're just incompetent.
Yeah.
You start questioning their professionalism, their attention to detail.
But the research we're looking at today suggests there's a third option, and it's a much more likely option, actually.
Which is
You made it physically painful for them to read it.
physically painful. Okay, that's a strong accusation.
It is, but I think it's accurate. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are digging into a whole stack of research on, of all things, document design. And before you roll your eyes and think, I'm not a graphic designer, I'm an accountant, or, I work in HR, I don't do pretty pictures, just stop.
Because, I'll be honest, that was my first reaction to this stack. I thought, really, is this going to be an hour about picking color palettes and making things look nice? I have real work to do.
And that is the exact misconception we need to just shatter right now. This is not about making things pretty. It's about survival. The core argument across all of these sources, from, the dense typography guides to the business communication handbooks, is that design is a functional survival skill. It is the interface between your information and the other person's brain.
So if the interface is broken,
The data doesn't get through. It's that simple.
it bounces off.
Exactly. You could have the cure for a disease written in a PDF, but if that PDF is a solid, unbroken wall of 10-point Times New Roman with half-inch margins, you haven't built a bridge, you've built a wall. You are actively stopping the information from reaching the brain of the person you're trying to communicate with.
And we've all faced that wall of text. You open an email or a document, and your heart just sinks. You physically recoil from the screen.
Yes, that physical recoil, that is exactly what we're trying to avoid. The sources talk a lot about this idea of cognitive burden. Readers, whether they're your boss, your client, or your professor, they don't start as blank slates. They're busy, they're tired, they have a million other things fighting for their attention.
So every time I make some squint or search for a heading or reread a sentence because the font is weird or the lines are too long,
You're draining their battery, you are adding weight to their cognitive load, and if you drain that battery before they get to your main point, you lose. Game over. They close the tab, they delete the email, your brilliant idea is gone.
So our mission today is to stop that from happening. We're going to explore the principles of effective document design. We're going to look specifically at this HATI-S model, at visual hierarchy and typography, all to turn your writing into something people actually want to read.
It's about turning your writing into a tool that works for you, rather than an obstacle you're forcing on someone else.
Okay, let's jump right into the psychology of it. Because before we can even talk about fonts or margins, we have to talk about how the human brain actually attacks a document.
Attacks is a good word for it. It really is. Because we don't read in the linear way we think we do.
We don't? I mean, I feel like I read. Top to bottom, left to right.
Not at first. When you first open a document, you don't start at the top left, read every single word on the first line, then dutifully move to the second line, and so on. Not initially. The research is really clear that the human brain scans. We're foraging for information.
We're hunter-gatherers looking for berries in a forest of text.
That's a perfect analogy. We're looking for the point. We're looking for relevance. And in Western cultures, where we read left to right, this scanning behavior follows a very specific geometry. It's called the Z pattern.
The Z pattern. Okay, walk us through this. I'm looking at a standard sheet of paper or, a computer screen. What are my eyes actually doing?
So imagine a giant letter Z superimposed on the page. The eye starts at the top left. That's what's called the primary optical area. It's the anchor point.
Got it. Top left.
Then it scans across the top to the right. That's the top bar of the Z. It's checking for context. Things like, what is this document? Who sent it? Is it urgent? It's getting its bearings.
Okay, then what? down to the next line.
No, and this is the crucial part that trips everyone up. It doesn't go to the next line immediately below. The eye cuts diagonally down through the middle of the page, all the way to the bottom left.
It cuts through the middle. So it effectively skips that entire center block of text.
It skims it. It's like sliding down a slide. The eye is looking for something to grab onto during that diagonal slide, a bold heading, maybe a bullet point, an image. If there's nothing there, if it's just a uniform block of text, whoosh, slides right past.
So wait a minute. If I have my most important call to action like, I need you to approve this budget by 5 p.m., and I've buried it in the middle of a dense paragraph right in the center of the page.
It is effectively invisible. The eye literally slides right over it during that diagonal cut. You're fighting against thousands of years of evolutionary behavior and cultural training. It's a losing battle.
That explains so many missed deadlines. The classic, but I wrote it in the email.
Yeah, but you wrote it in the dead zone.
Exactly. You have to design with human behavior, not against it. If you know the eye lands on the top left first, that's where you put your most important takeaway. Bottom line up front. If you know the eye exits at the bottom right after scanning that bottom horizontal bar, that's a great place for a sign-off or a final critical reminder. You have to place the food where the forager is already looking. This connects really well to another concept that popped up in the sources, specifically about trust and first impressions. They call it the Starbucks effect, or the coffee cup test.
Oh, I love this analogy. It's so simple, but it perfectly explains the concept of branding for people who, hate marketing buzzwords.
Okay, so for everyone listening, visualize this with us. You're at some boring conference. You see a table in the back of the room. On that table is a plain, white, styrofoam cup. No writing, no logo, just a white cup with some dark liquid in it.
What do you feel when you see that cup? Be honest.
Nothing good. Maybe. A little suspicion. Is it lukewarm? Is it that cheap, acidic office coffee? Is it even coffee at all? It could be paint water, for all I know. There's zero information.
Right. It elicits no positive emotional response and probably a slightly negative one. You assume it's low value. You assume it's generic and forgettable. Now, let's replace that cup. Same table, same liquid inside. But now it's a white paper cup with that iconic green Starbucks mermaid logo on it.
It's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
Instantly. Even if I happen to hate Starbucks, and I know some people do, I know exactly what it is.
You have an immediate reaction. You perceive a certain level of quality, of consistency. You know what it's going to taste like. You know it cost a certain amount of money, probably too much money.
Definitely too much money.
But that logo is a promise. It's a mental shortcut to trust and expectation. And that is the power of a brand.
And here's the massive point the sources make. Your documents are your brand.
Yes. A brand isn't just a logo. It's a collection of perceptions, and it's a reputation. So when you send a document to a colleague or a client or a professor, that document becomes a proxy for you.
That is actually terrifying when you think about it that way.
It should be a little terrifying. If you send a document that's messy, cramped, has inconsistent fonts, and looks like that wall of text we talked about, that is the styrofoam cup.
It just screams carelessness.
It screams a lack of expertise. It signals that you didn't have the time, or worse, the respect to organize your thoughts for the reader. It says, I'm disorganized, so here, you figure this out.
Whereas a well-designed document, even before they read a word,
It signals professionalism, organization, credibility. It says, I have my act together and I respect your time enough to make this easy for you. It builds trust before they've even processed a single sentence.
So to achieve that Starbucks level of document branding, one of our sources offered a pretty simple formula, the 3 C's.
Right. Be clear, be concise, be captivating.
Be clear. Use simple words. Don't try to sound smart with jargon. Just be understood, be concise, get to the point, respect their time, and be captivating. Capture their interest. And I think that captivating part is where all these design mechanics we're about to talk about really come in.
Absolutely. And to make it captivating and clear, we have a great framework. It's an acronym mentioned in several of the sources called HATS.
I do love a good acronym. So HATS. HATS. Let's unpack this properly. What does the H stand for?
H is for headings.
Headings. Okay. This seems obvious on the surface. Introduction, key findings, conclusion. But I feel like people either underuse them or they use them really, really badly.
They are the signposts of navigation. If we go back to that Z pattern, and the scanning green headings are the things that stop the eye from just sliding off the page, they allow a busy reader to skim effectively. If I'm looking for the budget section in your 20-page report, I shouldn't have to read the background and methodology sections to find it. I should see a big, bold sign that says budget.
But there's a trick to it, right? You can't just type the word budget and hit enter and call it a day.
No, not at all. They need strong visual contrast. They have to look different from the body text. This usually means they're larger or bolder or a different weight, maybe a different color. And critically, this is where so many people fail. There's the issue of consistency.
The sources called this the contract with the reader. I like that phrasing.
It's a perfect phrase. The contract is, I, the writer, promise that every time you see a 14-point bold sans serif font, it introduces a new main topic. If you use that on page 1, but then on page 3 you switch to a 12-point underlined serif font for the exact same level of heading, you've broken the contract.
And now I, the reader, am confused. I'm disoriented.
You're exhausted. You have to relearn the document structure in real time. It's like driving on a highway where the speed limit signs are sometimes circles, sometimes squares, and sometimes just, written in spray paint on a rock. It takes brain power to decipher that, and that's brain power that is not being used to understand your actual message.
So H is for headings. Establish the contract and stick to it. What about A? A is for access.
Access is all about how easily the reader can get in and find specific information. This overlaps a lot with headings, but it also includes things like bullet points, numbered lists, tables, graphics. It's about breaking up the gray.
We're definitely going to get deep into lists in a bit because there's some really juicy grammar drama in there, but let's finish the acronym first. T is for typography.
Typography, the science and art of the fonts you choose.
And S is for space.
White space, the breathing room, the silence between the notes.
HETS. Headings, access, typography, space. I want to zoom in on the paragraph discipline part of access for a second, because one of the sources gave some very specific, almost prescriptive numbers on this.
They did. And this is going to be painful for, say, any academics listening who are used to writing these beautiful, winding, page-long paragraphs.
I know. I was an English major. I could write a paragraph that lasted 3 pages. It was a point of pride. It was a monstrosity.
In a business context, that is a death sentence for your document. The rule of thumb mentioned is that business messages, emails, memos should aim for short paragraphs. We're talking a maximum of 5 to 6 sentences.
5 to 6 sentences. That is short.
It's very short. And for longer reports, where the thoughts are maybe a bit more complex, you can stretch it to 8 sentences. But that's the absolute limit. And here's the kicker. It is totally okay, even encouraged, to have a paragraph that is only 1 or 2 sentences long, especially for an opening or a closing.
I love a 1-sentence paragraph. It feels so punchy. It feels confident.
It creates a visual entry point. When you look at a page and you see a small, manageable cluster of text, your brain says, oh, I can handle that. That's easy. It invites you in. A giant, dense block of text says, warning, I am going to be hard work.
So short paragraphs are not just about being concise. They're a visual invitation to read. It's almost like a form of hospitality for the reader's eyes.
That's a great way to put it. It's about being a good host.
Okay, let's move to the T in HATS, typography. This is where I feel like a lot of people just get paralyzed. You open Microsoft Word, there are 1,000 fonts in that drop-down menu. Which one do I pick? Do I stick with the default? Do I try to be creative and pick something wild?
It can be totally overwhelming. But the sources really help by breaking it down into 2 main categories that you need to worry about 99% of the time: serif and sans serif.
Okay, let's define those very clearly for everyone.
So serif fonts are the traditional ones. Think Times New Roman, Garamond, Georgia. They have those little feet or flourishes at the ends of the letters.
Little decorative bits on the A's and T's.
Right. But they're not just for decoration. Historically, they come from Roman stone carving. But in printed documents, those serifs act like little railroad tracks. They help guide the eye horizontally along the line. They create a strong baseline that connects one letter to the next, making the flow of reading easier for long blocks of text on a physical page.
So serifs project a feeling of authority, tradition. I am a serious printed document.
Exactly. Now the other category is sans serif. Sans is French for without, so literally without feet. These are your fonts like Arial, Verdana, Calibri, Helvetica. They are clean, simple, straight lines, no flourishes.
These feel much more modern, more digital.
They do. They project a more contemporary professionalism. And historically, they have been much better for screens. Because screens are made of pixels, and on older, lower resolution screens, those tiny little serif feet would get blurry and pixelated. Sans serif fonts, with their clean lines, remained crisp and clear.
That makes so much sense. So if I'm writing an email or a report that I know will likely be read on a phone or a laptop, sans serif is probably the safer, more modern bet.
Generally, yes. It's cleaner, it's more accessible on screen. But the most important rule the sources mention isn't just about which one you pick, it's about how many you pick.
Rule of 3.
Never use more than 3 typefaces in a single document, and honestly, that's pushing it. Ideally, you stick to 2. One for your headings, one for your body text.
Why is that? Why not use 5 different fonts if they all look cool?
Because it creates visual chaos.
Yeah.
The second you start mixing Times New Roman for the body, Arial for the main header, and then you throw in, God forbid, Comic Sans for a pull quote,
Please, let's not even speak its name.
and then maybe you use impact for a warning. You create what's known as the ransom note effect. It looks like you cut letters out of 10 different magazines. It looks schizophrenic. It doesn't look like a coherent business
It
proposal.
looks manic. It undermines your credibility completely.
It does. It completely destroys that Starbucks trust we worked so hard to build.
Now, what about size?
Hmm.
Because I feel like I'm always seeing people try to cram more onto a single page by just shrinking the font. You see that email where they're like, if I just make it 9-point, I can fit it all on one page.
Right, the dreaded wall of tiny text.
Yeah.
The sources talk about a Goldilocks zone. You have to find the size that is just right. The standard for body text is 12 point.
12-point. Just remember that number.
Yes. Anything below 10 point is a major accessibility issue. You are effectively locking out people with vision impairments or, frankly, just anyone over the age of 40 who forgot their reading glasses.
And it also signals, again, that you're trying to hide something or that you're just disorganized. I wrote way too much, so I'll just shrink it down to fit.
Yeah,
It's a bad look.
it is. But interacting with font size is line length. This is a detail I found really fascinating because it explains why some websites are just infuriating to read.
The character count per line.
Right. The research suggests that the optimal line length for reading comfort is between 50 and 75 characters, which works out to about 10 to 12 words per line.
Why is that specific number so important? Why not just run the text all the way from the left edge of the monitor to the right edge and use all that space?
Because of how the eye physically travels, think about the mechanics. Your eye reads from left to right. When it reaches the end of the line on the far right, it has to snap all the way back to the left to find the start of the very next line.
That's called the return sweep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that line is too long, the distance the eye has to travel back is too far. It's
Yeah.
very easy for the eye to get lost on that long journey back. It doubles back to the line it just read, or it accidentally skips a line. It breaks the flow of reading and requires conscious effort to get back on track.
This is why newspapers use columns.
Precisely. They figured this out over a century ago. They narrow the text block so your eye can zip back and forth quickly and accurately without getting lost. So if you're writing a document on a wide screen, simply creating massive margins or even using columns can actually make your text much more readable than filling the whole width of the page.
Speaking of margins and the shape of the text block, we have to settle a debate. The sources were very, very clear on this. Justified versus left aligned.
Oh, this is a major battleground in so many offices.
So just to clarify for everyone, left aligned is what we usually do. The text is straight on the left edge, but jagged and uneven on the right. Justified is straight on both sides, creating a perfect, rigid box of text.
And people love the look of Justify because it seems neat. It looks formal, like a professionally typeset book. It creates that perfect rectangular block. But the expert verdict across the board is clear. Avoid it for most documents. Stick to left alignment, which is also known as ragged right.
Why? I mean, if Justified looks neater, why is it functionally worse?
It's because of how the computer achieves that perfectly straight right edge. To make every line end at the exact same point, the software has to stretch the spaces between the words. This creates inconsistent and sometimes huge gaps in the text.
Oh, right. You get those weird, massive spaces between some words, and others are crammed together.
Typographers call those gaps rivers of white. If you squint at a Justified paragraph, you can sometimes see these ugly white cracks running down the page. It makes the reading experience choppy and stuttery. Your brain has to deal with that uneven spacing. Left alignment keeps the word spacing consistent, which is much, much easier for the brain to process smoothly.
Okay, so ragged right is the way to go. It's friendlier on the eyes, even if it looks slightly less formal to some people.
It's more functional. And in good design, function almost always beats a purely aesthetic form.
Let's move to one of my favorite parts of the research now, the power of lists.
Lists are the ultimate access tool. They are your best friend.
They are. They break up that wall of text. They
Yeah.
add that beautiful, calming white space. But I learned today that I have probably been using them wrong for my entire life. Or at least I've been mixing them up.
You're talking about the difference between numbers and bullets.
Yes. I honestly thought they were basically interchangeable. I just thought numbers looked a bit more official or
It's
something.
a very common mistake, but they are definitely not interchangeable. The rule is actually very simple. Use numbers if the sequence or priority matters. If it's a step-by-step process, step 1, then step 2, then step 3, or if there's a ranking, like the top 10 reasons to do something.
And bullets.
You use bullets if the items can be in any order, if the sequence is irrelevant.
So if I'm listing the ingredients for a cake, that should be bullets, because it doesn't matter if I buy the flour before the eggs. But if I'm listing the steps to actually bake the cake, that has to be numbers.
Exactly. If you number a list of ingredients, the reader subconsciously thinks, okay, flour is number 1, so it must be the most important, or I'm supposed to add the flour first. You don't want to imply an order where there isn't one.
That makes total sense.
Ah.
Now, let's talk about the thing that really breaks lists. The sources call it the parallel structure trap.
Oh, this is where most people fail, and they don't even realize they're doing it, but the reader feels that something just feels off.
The sources gave some great cringe-worthy examples of this. Parallel structure basically means all the items in your list need to be grammatically the same part of speech.
Right. They need to match. If item 1 starts with a verb, item 2 must start with a verb. If item 1 is a noun phrase, item 2 must be a noun phrase. They have to line up.
Let's look at the bad example from one of the source videos. It was a list about what college requires. I'm going to read it out and just feel the clunk at the end.
I'm ready.
College requires us to manage our time, to work independently, and critical thinking.
Groans audibly. Oh, did you hear that? It's like a record scratch.
Yeah. You have manage our time, to work independently, and then just critical thinking.
The first 2 are verbs or verb phrases. The last one is a noun phrase. It completely jars the brain. It feels unfinished or broken. It's like walking down a flight of stairs and that last step isn't there.
So the correction would be,
Well, you have 2 choices. You can make them all verbs. College requires us to manage our time, work independently, and think critically. See how that flows. Or you can make them all nouns. College requires time management, independent work, and critical thinking.
that second one sounds so much more professional. It has a rhythm to it.
It does, and rhythm makes things easier for the brain to process and remember.
There was another example that was even worse, the check-in list. This one was a complete disaster of parallel structure.
Oh, this one was a mess. It combined a statement, a command, and a fragment. It was all over the place.
It's something like this. 1, departure time is 5 minutes, which is a statement of fact. 2, ensure you cross-check the log, which is a command. 3, depress manual break, which is just a fragment.
It's so confusing. Is this a status update? Is it an instruction manual? What am I supposed to do with this information? It's just a jumble.
And then they showed the good example, which I think was for a train operator.
Yeah.
And it was just pure, clean, parallel fragments it was. Depress manual brake, increase power, release manual brake, sound departure alarm.
Beautiful. See how they all start with a verb? Depress, increase, release, sound. It's an imperative mood. It tells you exactly what to do. There is zero fluff. It's clear, concise, and captivating in its own way.
And notice, there's no punctuation at the end of those lines. No periods.
That's a really key stylistic point. If your list items are fragments, which they often are in checklists, you generally don't need periods. It looks cleaner and less cluttered without them.
Okay, last question on list, because this one always gets me. The lead-in sentence, the sentence right before the list starts. I always struggle with whether or not to put a colon there.
The rule for this is actually pretty strict, which is helpful. You use a colon only if the lead-in is a complete sentence on its own.
Okay, give me an example.
So please complete the following 3 steps. That's a complete thought. It could end with a period, so you use a colon. But if the let-in flows grammatically into the bullets, like our main goals for this year are, that is not a complete sentence. You can't put a period there, so no colon. You just go straight into list.
So I would read, our main goals for this year are, and then a new line with the first bullet point.
Exactly. It flows as one long sentence that is just broken up visually by the bullets.
That one rule is going to save me so much second guessing.
It's those little details that signal mastery and professionalism.
Okay, let's move back to the S in HAT space. We touched on this, but I want to go a little deeper into the concept of white space, or as some designers call it, negative space.
It's so often seen as wasted paper or wasted screen real estate by amateurs. You see this all the time. Why is this margin so big? I could fit a graph there. I could fit another paragraph.
But the expert view is that white space isn't empty. It's active. It's doing a job.
It is breathing room. It frames the text. Think about walking into a cluttered, overstuffed room versus a minimalist, sparsely furnished room. The cluttered room makes you anxious. You don't know where to look first. The minimalist room feels calm. It allows you to appreciate the few beautiful things that are actually there.
So the white space is the minimalist room for your words.
Yes. And psychologically, a document that's cramped to the margins signals desperation. It says, I'm desperate to save paper, or I'm desperate to tell you everything I know right this second. Generous margins and spacing signal confidence. They say, I know my points are strong enough to stand on their own. I don't need to clutter the page to seem important.
It's actually a power move, using white space effectively.
It really is. It signals authority and respect for the reader's attention.
And it also helps with a core design principle called proximity.
Proximity is one of the simplest but most powerful principles. It just means that things that are related should be grouped close together, and things that are unrelated should be pushed apart. White space is the tool you use to do the pushing.
So a heading should be physically closer to the paragraph it belongs to and have more space separating it from the paragraph before it.
Exactly. If the heading is floating exactly halfway between two paragraphs, the reader's brain has a millisecond of confusion. Does this heading go with this text or that text? Use white space to create clear visual groups. It helps the brain categorize information instantly before reading a single word.
Let's talk about color, because this is another place where people can go a little overboard.
The dreaded carnival effect.
Yeah, I've seen them. Emails with red text, blue highlights, a yellow background. It's an assault on the eyes.
Color needs a clear strategy. First and foremost, you need high contrast for readability. Black text on a white background is the gold standard for a reason. It is the easiest on the human eye. Don't try to get clever with, gray text on a light gray background.
What about the symbolism of colors?
Colors have built-in meaning, especially in specific cultures. In North America, red means warning, urgency, stop, error. If you write a sentence like, have a nice day, in bright red, bold text, it feels aggressive.
It feels like a threat. Have a nice day or else.
Exactly. Yellow is high energy, but it can be hard to read on a white background and can feel a bit attention-seeking. Blues and grays are generally safe, soothing, professional colors for corporate documents.
But we absolutely have to talk about accessibility here. This is a massive point.
This is crucial and often overlooked. You cannot, under any circumstances, rely on color alone to convey meaning.
Unpack that. What does it mean?
If you have a chart and you say in your text, as you can see, the bad numbers are in red and the good numbers are in green, a reader with red-green color blindness, which is very common, might see them both as the same shade of gray. The meaning is completely lost to them. You have to use color plus something else, like a label or a symbol, or you make the bad numbers bold. Color is an enhancement, not the primary carrier of information.
That brings us nicely to our next section, visuals. The sources had this fantastic and slightly funny analogy about a dog and a toy.
I laughed out loud at this one. The source compares the reader to a dog playing fetch. The dog's entire focus is on the toy.
The visual, the chart, the graph, the picture, is the toy.
Right. If you throw a visual onto the page, the reader's eye goes straight to it. It dominates their attention. So the lesson is simple. Make sure the toy is relevant.
So don't just put a piece of clip art of a handshake on the page, because you're talking about a new agreement.
Please, no more clip art handshakes. And no more generic stock photos of diverse business people pointing at a blank whiteboard. Visuals must have a function. They should either summarize complex data, explain a process, or persuade the reader emotionally. They should not be mere decoration. The acid test is, if you take the visual away and the document works just as well, then you probably didn't need the visual in the first place.
And the placement matters too, right? It's proximity again.
Yes. Don't make the reader flip the page to find figure 1. If your text says, as shown in figure 1 needs to be right there on the same page as close as possible. Otherwise, you're breaking their flow. You're making them hunt for the toll, and that's just annoying.
We're nearing the end of our deep dive, but we have to touch on a topic that came up in the Principles and Practices source, accessibility, and the whole idea of an iterative process.
We mentioned accessibility with color, but it goes much deeper. In many places, like in Ontario with the AODA, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, accessibility isn't just a nice thing to do, it's the law.
What does that mean in practical terms for someone just writing a report in Microsoft Word?
It means using the proper heading tags in the Styles menu. Not just making text bigger and bolder, but actually selecting the heading 1 or heading 2 style. This embeds code in the document that allows screen readers for the visually impaired to navigate the document structure. It also means adding alt text to your images, which is a short description of the image that a screen reader can read out loud.
So it's about making sure your information is available to everyone, regardless of ability. It's about inclusion.
Design is inclusion. If you design poorly, you are, by definition, excluding people. You are saying, this information is not for you.
And finally, let's talk about the process. I am so guilty of this. I write the thing, I run a spell check, and I hit send. Done.
And that is such a missed opportunity. Good design, like good writing, rarely ever happens in the first draft. You need to iterate.
So review and revise.
And test. The sources suggest actually testing your document on a real, live human. Give your report to a colleague and give them a simple task. Say, find the budget section for me. Don't tell them where it is, just watch them. Do their eyes go straight to it because you have a clear heading? Or do they flip pages back and forth looking confused and frustrated?
And if they look confused, your design has failed. It's not their fault.
Exactly. And you need to fix the design, not blame the reader. You can't just say, well, they should have read it more carefully. No, you should have designed it more carefully.
That is a harsh but very necessary truth.
It is.
Okay, let's try to wrap this all up. We've covered the Z pattern of scanning, the Starbucks effect of branding, the HATS model, the deep, dark secrets of parallel structure and lists, and the silent power of white space.
We have covered a lot of ground.
If you had to summarize the entire ethos of all this research, what is the one big takeaway?
For me, it all comes down to a single word. Respect. Good document design is about respecting the reader's time, respecting their eyes, and respecting their brain energy. When you take the time to design well, you are sending a powerful, unspoken message to the reader that says, I value you.
And that feeling of being valued is what creates the trust that allows your message to actually be heard in the first place.
That's it right there.
I want to leave our listener with a final thought that really struck me while reading through these sources. We often think of content and design as two completely separate phases. Step 1, write the content, do the real work. Step 2, make it look pretty.
Right. The old way of thinking. The lipstick on a pig approach.
But based on everything we've talked about today, design is the content.
That's the provocative thought, isn't it? If the design fails, the content effectively doesn't exist because no one reads it, no one understands it, no one acts on it. How many brilliant ideas, how many world-changing proposals or critical safety warnings have been lost to history simply because they were buried in a 10-point, justified, Times New Roman wall of text that no one had the energy to climb?
That is something to think about, a lot to think about.
It really is. The medium is the message.
So here's my challenge to you, the listener. The next time you're about to send an important email or a report, just stop for 1 minute. Look at it. Don't read it. Just look at it. Does it pass the skim test? Is there breathing room? Is it a styrofoam cup or is it a Starbucks cup?
Make it a Starbucks cup.
Thanks for diving in with us today. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.
Design, create, communicate. I want that.